There's no way around this fact, okay? An iPhone is dropping, and I'm not talking about a new iPhone. I mean, one of the iPhones Apple currently sells is going to be dropped, and that's outside, of course, of the 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max, which are almost certainly going to be discontinued as soon as the iPhone 12s are unveiled. But the wild card one we don't necessarily know is the iPhone XR. Is it going to be axed, or will the iPhone 11 be discontinued as a whole lineup? In today's video, I'll be breaking down every single possibility and arguing the pros/cons of Apple doing either or. Let's begin. I think I want to start with the most logical explanation, because I think most people would assume the older iPhone gets axed first, right? Okay, iPhone XR, you're too old, you still use the Roman numeral, we don't even know why it was called XR in the first place, so obviously, let's just ditch that one. That way, every single iPhone in the lineup can have a centered Apple logo, it can be consistent. iPhone 11 gets its price drop, they keep it around for another year, and everybody's happy, right? Well, I'm here to argue today why I think that dropping the iPhone 11 and keeping the XR might make a whole lot of sense. Questioning tradition, aren't we? I know, it sounds weird, but consider the fact that the iPhone XR price drop was very, very outside the norm. Typically, when Apple releases a new iPhone and wants to continue selling a year-old iPhone for another year, they only drop it by around $100. However, the iPhone XR, probably because of the entry-level price point of the iPhone 11 being $700, they decided to drop the XR's price by $150. Okay, this was outside of the norm, and a lot of people were not expecting the XR to get a price drop this substantial, to the point where it now starts at $599 and the iPhone 11 at $699. Now, obviously, the regular iPhone 11 has been a bestseller, one of the best-selling iPhones we've seen in years, and it's actually globally one of the most popular smartphones of 2020. People love that starting price and all of the features they get along with the iPhone 11, and for that reason, I have to wonder, with the introduction of the iPhone 12 rumored to start at around $650 to $700, are the upgrades with that new iPhone 12 going to be substantial enough that people don't just feel like they should go with the iPhone 11 anyway? Yeah, the iPhone 12 has a lot of stuff going for it. It's got the 5G modems, it's got the OLED displays, it's got the updated design language A14 chip. There's a bunch of advantages to go with it, but if they keep the iPhone 11 at a reduced price point and now it's $599, you can still get that dual camera, you can still get night mode, you can still get that all-day battery life, and the only thing you have to put up with is the rounded edges and slightly thicker bezels and liquid retina display, which I know a lot of us are always thinking, well, OLED is clearly way better than LCD, but in that case, you know, Apple's been selling OLED iPhones since 2017, and they can't get them to outsell the LCD iPhones they keep selling, whether it be the XR or the 11, because they're cheaper, and I think there's a large number of people that literally just don't care. They can't really see much of a difference unless it's side by side, so they're just gonna buy what's cheapest and what works for them. In that case, I could personally see Apple keeping the iPhone XR around, which I know sounds weird, and it does mean putting on your tinfoil hat, because they typically don't do this, but my point being, they would keep the XR at its current price point of $599, drop the iPhone 11, and start the iPhone 12 at around that price point of $650 to $699. That way, there's still a $100 difference, but my reasoning with keeping the XR around is it's substantially worse camera than likely what the iPhone 12 will be rocking, okay? Because you don't want to drop the XR price too much. I think a lot of people forget about that because the iPhone SE exists, you know, at $400, so you don't want to drop the price of the XR again, because then it'll be around $450, way too close to the SE, and then no one would want to buy the 4.7-inch iPhone because it's only $50 cheaper than getting, you know, Face ID, gesture control, and all the great perks of buying the XR. So the fact that the XR is still rocking the A12 chip, the battery life isn't as good as the iPhone 11, and likely won't be as good as the iPhone 12, and it would only cost you an extra $100 to upgrade to the iPhone 12, which would grant you that dual camera, that ultra-wide lens, and of course that would allow for night mode. You'd have the A14 chip, so people would feel like, hey, I got a pretty substantial upgrade and it's only $100 more. Essentially what I'm saying is the XR, this little middle iPhone in the lineup that's not quite SE cheap, but at the same time not quite iPhone 12 flagship, its purpose should be to cover the basics for someone who wants something a little bit bigger and a little bit better than the SE, but at the same time encourage people to upgrade upgrade to the flagship, okay? Because at the end of the day, Apple really, really wants you to get the latest iPhone. They don't want you buying a year-old iPhone because it's cheaper and does the basic stuff. So in my opinion, keeping the XR at its current price point for another year, because again, when they first reduced the price of it, it was much more than usual. That would make people feel like upgrading to the iPhone 12 and opting for that OLED display, opting for the latest generation. It's only $100 more, so why not get the latest iPhone possible instead of settling for the old iPhone from 2018? So in a sense, the XR is less appealing, and that's why it could help having iPhone 12 sales, because people will feel like the XR is not that good a deal if it's still gonna be $599 for another year, and there's still a decent amount of room between the SE and the XR. Is this likely to happen? Probably not. Is it a theory I could get behind? Yes, absolutely. But sure, if you want to talk about the most likely scenario, it's probable that they're just gonna drop the XR for the sake of consistency in the lineup and keep the iPhone 11 around at $599. I could totally see that happening as well, but there's a few outlandish possibilities out there. Maybe they keep both of them. Maybe they start the XR at $499 and keep it around at $500, so it's $100 more than the SE, which, you know, there's a big enough gap there. And then they keep the iPhone 11 around as well at $599. So now you've got an even more complicated lineup as a whole, and keep both of them around, or simultaneously. I just got another idea. What if they discontinue both of these things? And they just say, you know what, if you're comfortable with an LCD display, then just go ahead and get the older design iPhone SE. You only gotta spend $400 on it. But if you want anything better than the SE, you have to go with the iPhone 12. I mean, it's fair to say Apple has never released 4 iPhones at the same time before, and the fact that we already got a 2020 iPhone at the beginning of this year means that the iPhone lineup is already getting pretty confusing for people. So for the sake of not having too many options and not distorting the lineup so much, maybe Apple discontinues both. Maybe there's no XR, maybe there's no 11, and they just stick with the 4 iPhone 12s, and if you can't afford any of those 4, then you just gotta settle for the SE. Which makes most sense to you? I'm curious, because in my opinion, keeping around the XR because the iPhone 11 has too many of the same camera features that the iPhone 12 has makes a whole lot of sense, especially given how much they dropped the price compared to usual years. Let me know what you guys are thinking about. Hitting me up over on Twitter, join my Discord. Let's chat more about it there. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I'll see you in the next one.